Norfolk here, psychologist, speaker, author of 8 books, host of 2 PBS specials. Here again to bring you another tip on how to help you create the life you want. Specifically, how to bring more clarity, confidence, creativity to everything you do using my Life from the Top of the Mind system. For those of you who don't know me, I have this system that I've created. I've written a book about it. I get to go around the world teaching it. It's called Life from the Top of the Mind. And it actually shows people how to break the cycle of stress, frustration, shift to what I call the clear, confident, creative part of the brain, rewire the brain so that you don't get triggered as much by difficult people, difficult situations in the future, and then engage others in a way that has them really hearing what you want them to hear, kind of creating more solution-focused conversations. It's in this last part of the seminar that people go, oh man, this just takes so much time. And of course, it does take time, as you might imagine, to engage people in a way where they shift from what I call the resistant brain to the receptive brain, so you can create more solution-focused conversations. And so I encourage people, hey, you only want to use this particular 6-step method with people that deserve it, people who you are willing to devote this kind of amount of time to. But so they go, oh man, isn't there an easier way and a quicker? I just want to kind of tell them what they need to do or stop doing or start doing. And if they just do it, I know everything would be so much better. And I'm talking a lot to leaders, but I'm also talking to parents sometimes, because I think it's parents sometimes. We get exasperated with our kids. We go, listen, if you just do this and quit argue with me or quit being so stubborn or whatever it is, totally understandable. The problem with that, unfortunately, is it doesn't have the other person hearing what we really want them to hear as valuable. It comes across as we have no confidence in them, or we know better than them, which they feel less than, and that actually blocks their ability to hear what we want them to hear. I love this book by Brené Brown. If you haven't read Brené Brown stuff on everything, but especially leadership, she's got this book called Dare to Lead. And in it, she addresses this time factor that leaders and parents kind of have a tendency to go, oh, man, this takes too much time. I want to read the quote because it's so good, I don't want to mess it up. She says, leaders, and I have added to this, and parents must either invest a reasonable amount of time attending to fears and feelings, or squander an unreasonable amount of time trying to manage ineffective and unproductive behavior. So yeah, listening, empathizing, making sure that you really get what they're saying, really make sure that they know you get it and that you totally understand it. That does take time. I believe, however, that takes less time than getting into a cycle of resistance and frustration with them. Because that's what people tell me happens. People come to them and say, hey, I got this problem, da, 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 and they go, well, you should just do that. And people go, well, either that didn't help or they go away and don't change. And of course, then that creates more frustration in everybody. Plus, the next time they come to us really wanting to let us know what's going on, that image of us kind of blowing them off or jump into a solution is in their mind, and they come into the conversation pretty resistant. On the other hand, the ability to work my 6-step process, and that has to do with going into the conversation, taking 100% accountability for the qualities and characteristics we want to bring to the conversation. We can't go in thinking, man, this person really frustrates me or pisses me off, because that's not us taking accountability. And of course, we want them to take accountability. So we choose the qualities or characteristics. This is easier, by the way, when we've already learned how to shift to what I call the top of the mind, this clear, confident, creative part of who we are, because now we've been practicing bringing these qualities to all aspects of life. The next thing we want to make sure we're doing when we're engaging someone is holding an image of them at their best. See, our middle brain, this limbic system, has a bias to the negative, and it has a tendency to pay more attention to negative data than it does positive data. And so it will focus on what they're doing wrong or how wrong they are being, and that's sometimes all we see. It's had this middle brain kind of painting their entire being with this negative brush. If we'll just recognize that that's only who they are when they're stuck in this lower 20% of the brain. This is a fear-based part of the brain, by the way. They're probably afraid that we don't respect them or like them or won't listen to them or won't get it or try to fix it when they really want us to just listen. So when they're coming in that fear-based part of the brain, we don't want to try to stop that, because stopping that comes across as you're wrong, you're bad, you shouldn't do that. Instead, we want to hold an image of them at their best. If they're part of your organization, do they do anything well? If they're part of your family, what do they love to do? What do they get excited about? hold an image of them at their best. That will keep this middle brain from painting their entire being with a negative brush. Then we want to do what we've all heard is a good idea. We want to listen and learn what's important to them, because that's what's driving their concern and their resistance. It's also what's going to be driving a solution-focused conversation. So you want to be listening with curiosity, maybe asking that question, hey, help me understand what's important to you here. What do you want me to know about this? You'll be amazed at what people tell you. Once they tell you, then it's going to be important to say, okay, I can certainly see how that would be important to you. I can see how you would be upset by that. That's what empathy is all about. It basically says you don't have to keep defending your right to think and feel what you think and feel. I can see how you would feel it, see it that way. And then you use a magic word. And the magic word is always and, never but. You never want to say, well, yeah, I see what you're saying, but you know, but will negate anything that comes before it. And ties where the conversation is to where you want the conversation to go. Then you do something that most people really never do, certainly don't do enough of, and that's start asking what I call solution-focused questions. Not questions about the problem or the past or what they're doing wrong, but questions about what's important to them, what's important to you, how that blends together. Stephen Covey in his 7 Habits calls this the third alternative, blending what's important to you with what's important to them. Saying something like, so, given that this is important to you, would it be fair to say that in the future, by the way, you always want to be talking about the future. There's no blame and no shame in the future. That's an opportunity for them to think in terms of what they want to do differently and what you want to do differently. So you ask that question and see where the conversation goes. Then, if it goes where you want it to go, you start to problem solve. So that's that 6-step process, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Spell LEAP, LEAP model, because I like my models to spell things. Regardless, however, yeah, it will take a certain amount of time. But it's my belief that, number one, it's going to take less time than getting into a cycle with this person and going nowhere, and then coloring future conversations. It's also going to set up an expectation that future conversations can have this kind of reciprocity to it, kind of listening and sharing and asking questions. And so it will make future conversations go as well. So if you don't have a whole lot of time to squander managing unproductive and dysfunctional behavior, I suggest we adopt Dr. Brown's perspective of taking a reasonable amount of time, attending to fears and feelings, really listening, finding out what's important to that person, making sure they know we get it, and then asking that solution-focused question. By the way, this is what I teach. I get to go around the world teaching people, leadership teams, organizations, leaders to do this. How to shift to the top of the mind, how to rewire the brain, and how to engage other people so that they shift from their resistant brain to their receptive brain so we can create more solution-focused conversations. This is something you'd like me to do. All you got to do is go to my website, billcrawfordphd.com, hit the contact button, let me know what you're interested in. Love to talk with you about that. In the meantime, here's to you, bringing more clarity, confidence, creativity into everything you do. And I look forward to seeing you in the future.